a black single dad told his CEO he had a date. She looked at him, this man who fixed her thermostats and replaced her light bulbs, and asked, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "Is she prettier than me?" The question hung in the air of the sleek glass office like a trap waiting to snap shut. He stood there, facilities coordinator uniform still on, hands that had just been checking maintenance logs now frozen at his sides. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. She leaned against her desk, arms crossed, designer suit catching the Seattle evening light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. He didn't understand yet what he just walked into. "It's my daughter," he said carefully. "Her birthday. We're going to the aquarium." Her expression changed. Something cold flickered behind her eyes. She waved him off with a laugh that sounded like broken glass. "Of course. Have fun." He left. She stayed. And what happened next, what she set in motion with a few keystrokes and a quiet word to HR, would cost him everything: his job, his savings, nearly his daughter. But here's what she didn't know. The man she was about to destroy wasn't just a facilities coordinator who kept the building running. The hands she'd dismissed, brown skin scarred from manual labor, fingers that changed air filters and tightened loose bolts. Those hands had once moved across piano keys in front of 2,000 people at Carnegie Hall. The quiet voice that had just apologized for having a prior commitment had once been profiled in the New York Times as the most important classical pianist of his generation. She thought she knew exactly who he was. She had no idea what she'd just done. If you believe that dignity can't be taken, only given away, stay with this story. Because what happens when a man who lost everything finally decides to stand in the light again will restore your faith in justice. Before we begin, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated by someone who had power over you? But to understand how a world-famous pianist ended up changing light bulbs in a tech company, and why the CEO who fired him would soon be facing questions from her own board, we need to go back 6 weeks, to an ordinary Monday morning in downtown Seattle. The building was still dark when Darius Webb pushed through the glass doors at 6:45. He moved through Meridian Tech the way he always did. Quiet, methodical. A man who knew every thermostat, every security panel, every flickering bulb before anyone else noticed something was wrong. His boots made soft sounds on the polished floors. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and cold air from the vents he'd checked an hour earlier. He carried a tablet in one hand, maintenance logs already updated, and a toolbox that had seen better years. 3rd floor first. Temperature controls. He adjusted the settings in the East Wing conference rooms. Someone always turned them too high on Friday and forgot. By Monday morning, the rooms felt like saunas. Darius corrected it without leaving a note. No one would know he'd been there. That was the point. The light in conference room C flickered when he passed. He stopped, set down the toolbox, pulled a replacement bulb from his pocket, and changed it in less than a minute. The room went bright and steady. He packed up and kept moving. At the security desk, Marcus looked up from his phone and grinned. "Early, as always." "You know me," Darius said. "Coffee's fresh if you want it." "I'm good, thanks." Marcus waved him through. Darius disappeared into the stairwell, already thinking about the HVAC filter on 6 that needed replacing before the morning rush. By 7:30, the building would be full. Engineers, managers, people in expensive shoes who never looked twice at the man keeping their lights on. Darius preferred it that way. He lived in the Central District with his daughter, a 1-bedroom rental on a street where the houses still had character, even if the paint was peeling. Gentrification crept closer every year. Coffee shops replaced corner stores. Rent climbed. But for now, it was home. That morning, before the sun came up, he'd made Zoe breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice in the chipped glass she liked because it had a faded rainbow on the side. She sat at the tiny kitchen table, legs swinging, a book propped open in front of her plate, Langston Hughes. She checked it out from the library 3 times already. "Did you ever want to be famous?" she asked. Darius looked up from the stove. His daughter was 9, small for her age, all elbows and questions, with eyes that saw more than he wanted her to. "Why do you ask?" She shrugged. Hughes was famous. Everyone knew his poems. Not everyone needs to be famous, baby. But what if you're good at something? Shouldn't people know? He set her plate down, kissed the top of her head. Being good at something and being famous aren't the same thing. She thought about that, took a bite of toast, didn't argue. They walked to the bus stop together. Zoe carried her backpack and her book. Darius walked beside her, hands in his jacket pockets, watching the neighborhood wake up. A neighbor waved from a porch. A dog barked 2 houses down. Morning light touched the tops of the buildings ahead, gold and soft. The bus came. Zoe hugged him quick and climbed the steps. "Love you, Dad. Love you too." The doors closed. The bus pulled away. Darius stood there until it turned the corner. Then he walked to work. By 8:15, Meridian Tech was alive. Employees filled the lobby, voices bounced off glass walls. Someone laughed near the elevator. A group of engineers clustered by the coffee station, talking fast about a product launch. Darius moved between them like a ghost. He checked the third-floor break room sink that had been dripping last week. Fixed. He tested the door to the server room. Secure. He replaced the air filter in the executive wing without anyone noticing he was there. At 8:47, the CEO arrived. Doctor. Simone Garrett stepped out of a black Tesla in the underground garage. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Darius made in a month. Her heels clicked sharp on the concrete as she walked toward the elevator. She carried a leather bag and her phone, already talking to someone before the doors closed. She didn't see him. Darius was replacing a burnt-out exit sign near the stairwell. She passed within 10 feet, voice crisp and controlled, giving orders to whoever was on the other end of the call. He finished the job, stepped back. The green light glowed steady now. By the time he looked up, she was gone. The rest of the morning passed the same way. Darius moved through the building, fixed what was broken, checked what was running, stayed out of sight. Lunchtime, he sat in the basement break room with a sandwich he'd packed. The room was empty. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. He ate quietly, scrolling through his phone, checking for messages from Zoe's school. Nothing. He finished, threw the wrapper away. Got back to work. At 3, he passed Marcus again on his way to check the loading dock. "Hey, Darius." "Yeah?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret. "You notice the boss has been staying late? Every night last week, sometimes till 10, 11. Darius paused. "Overtime? I don't know. Just weird. She's usually out by 6. Marcus shrugged. "Maybe board stuff. None of my business." "Probably," Darius said, but something in Marcus's tone stuck. Darius thought about it as he finished his rounds. He thought about it as he clocked out at 5. He thought about it on the bus ride home, watching the city slide past the window. By the time he unlocked the apartment door and found Zoe curled up on the couch with her journal, he'd almost forgotten. Almost. But somewhere in the back of his mind, a question settled. Why would someone with everything stay late in an empty building every single night? 2 weeks later, the pattern started. Simone Garrett stayed late. Every night. Her office lights glowed on the 6th floor long after everyone else went home. Darius noticed because his rounds took him past her door around 8:30 most evenings. Temperature checks, security sweeps. The building emptied out by 7, but she was always there. Alone behind glass walls, laptop open, phone pressed to her ear. He didn't think much of it at first. Then the heating system failed. It was a Tuesday. Cold snap hit Seattle hard that week. The building's HVAC struggled to keep up. Around 8:45, Darius got a call from the automated system. Executive wing, 6th floor, temperature dropping fast. He grabbed his tools and headed up. Her office door was open. She sat at her desk wearing a blazer and scarf, arms wrapped around herself. Her breath misted faintly in the air. Darius knocked on the door frame. She looked up. "It's freezing in here. I know. I'm on it." He went to the wall panel, pulled the cover, and checked the wiring. A relay had blown. Simple fix. He replaced it in 3 minutes. The vents kicked on. Warm air started flowing. "Should be good now," he said. She stood, moved closer to the vent. Relief crossed her face. "Thank you." "No problem." He turned to leave. "What's your name?" He paused. Looked back. She was watching him, really watching him, like she was seeing him for the first time. "Darius." "Simone." She extended her hand. He shook it. Her grip was firm, her palm cold from sitting in the chill too long. "Thank you, Darius." He nodded and left. The next night, she was there again. Her office was warm this time, but she flagged him down when he passed. "Everything working okay?" he asked. "Yes. Perfect." She hesitated. "Long day. Seems like a lot of those lately." She laughed. It sounded tired. You noticed? Hard not to. A beat of silence. Board meeting tomorrow, she said. Acquisition rumors. Everyone wants a piece of what we built. She rubbed her temples. Sorry, you didn't ask. It's fine. But she kept talking. About the pressure, the investors circling, the feeling that no matter how much she accomplished, it was never enough to make them stop questioning her. Darius listened, didn't offer solutions, didn't try to fix it. When she finished, she looked almost surprised. I don't usually do this. Do what? Talk to people who aren't trying to get something from me. He didn't know what to say to that. So he just nodded. Good night, Dr. Garrett. Simone, she said. Just Simone. The conversations became routine. The Thursday, she asked about his work, how long he'd been at Meridian, what he did before this. He kept his answers short. 7 years. Maintenance. Before that, other things. Friday, he asked if she ever went home. She smiled. Sometimes, when there's a reason to. Monday, she asked if he had family. A daughter, he said. Zoe? She's 9. Simone's expression softened. Just the two of you? Yeah, that must be hard. We manage. She didn't push. But something shifted in how she looked at him after that. Tuesday, she told him about her ex-husband, the venture capitalist who built his career on her back and left when someone younger came along. Forbes called me a self-made woman, she said. Bitterness edged her voice. Like I didn't have help tearing myself apart to get here. Darius leaned against the doorframe. Sounds lonely. It is. She met his eyes, held them longer than necessary. Wednesday, she asked about Zoe, what she liked, what she was good at. Poetry, Darius said. She writes in this journal, hides it under her mattress like it's classified. Does she let you read it? No, but I don't ask. She'll share when she's ready. Simone smiled. A real one this time. You're a good father. I try. Most people just try to survive, she said quietly. You're actually present. Darius didn't know how to respond to that, so he changed the subject. Asked about her day, let her talk. By the second week, the pattern was set. He'd finish his rounds, stop by her office. She'd wave him in. They'd talk for 10, 15 minutes, sometimes about work, sometimes about nothing. He noticed things. The way she rubbed her neck when she was stressed. The way she rubbed her neck when she was stressed. The way her voice dropped when she talked about being alone. The way she smiled when he mentioned Zoe, like the idea of a father who showed up every day was something rare and precious. Sharp cheekbones, deep brown eyes, a presence that filled a room even when she was tired. But more than that, she was human. Underneath the suits and the Forbes profile, she was just someone trying not to drown. He noticed she had nowhere to go, and he understood that, because for a long time after Claire died, he hadn't either. Thursday night, she showed up at his desk. It was late, almost 9. He was logging out, packing his bag. Heading out? She asked. Yeah, early morning tomorrow. She nodded. Her fingers tapped against her phone case. Nervous energy. Do you have plans this weekend? Zoe's birthday, he said. We're going to the aquarium. Simone's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. That sounds nice. She's been asking for months. I'm sure she's excited. Darius stood, shouldered his bag. Have a good weekend, Simone. You too. But as he walked away, he felt her watching him. And when he glanced back, her eyes hadn't moved. Friday evening, Darius packed up early. It was rare. He usually stayed until 7, finishing rounds, making sure everything was secure. But tonight was different. Zoe's birthday was tomorrow. He promised her the aquarium, and he wanted to pick up her gift on the way home. He was zipping his bag when Simone appeared. She stood in the doorway of his small workspace, arms crossed, casual but not quite relaxed. She wore a navy dress and heels. Hair pulled back, makeup perfect, like she'd just come from somewhere important or was heading there next. Leaving early? She asked. Yeah, got something to do, she asked. Yeah, got something to do. She stepped closer. Her perfume reached him first. Something expensive. Darius looked up. Her voice was lighter than usual. Rehearsed a. Would you like to get dinner sometime? Maybe next Friday? The question hung between them. Darius blinked. His hand stilled on the zipper. He hadn't expected this. Hadn't seen it coming even after 2 weeks of late-night conversations. I appreciate that, he said carefully, but I can't. Her smile stayed fixed. Can't? I already have a date this weekend. The air changed. Simone's expression shifted. Something flickered behind her eyes. Surprise. Then hurt. Then something harder. A date? She said it like she didn't believe him. Like the idea was impossible. Darius felt the wrongness of the moment settle over him. He'd misstepped somehow, said the wrong thing. But it was too late to take it back. Simone forced a laugh, tilted her head, tried to sound playful. Is she prettier than me? The question landed like a punch. Silence. Darius stared at her. His mouth opened, closed. He didn't know how to answer that, didn't know what she wanted him to say. It's my daughter, he said finally. The words came out awkward, he said finally. The words came out awkward, rushed. Simone's face went still. Her smile disappeared. Something cold settled into her features. She looked at him like he'd just done something unforgivable, like he'd pitied her. She recovered fast. The smile came back, brittle and sharp. Of course, I should have known. Her voice was ice. Have a great time, she said. She turned and walked away, heels clicking sharp on the floor. She didn't look back. Darius stood there alone in the empty workspace. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. His bag hung heavy on his shoulder. He knew he'd said something wrong, but he didn't know what. Saturday morning, he woke Zoe at 8. She stumbled into the kitchen in her pajamas, hair wild, eyes half closed. He handed her orange juice and toast, set a small wrapped box on the table. Her eyes went wide. Can I open it now? Go ahead. She tore through the paper. Inside was a book. Poetry by Maya Angelou. She ran her fingers over the cover, careful, like it was something precious. Thank you, Dad. You're welcome, baby. An hour later, they were on the bus heading downtown. Zoe pressed her face against the window, watching the city slide past. She wore her favorite jacket, the purple one with the zipper that stuck. Her backpack sat on her lap. Inside was the new book and a notebook where she'd written questions about octopuses. The aquarium was crowded, families everywhere, kids shouting, babies crying, the smell of salt water and popcorn mixed in the humid air. Zoe didn't care about the noise. She moved from tank to tank, reading every placard, asking Darius questions he didn't know how to answer. Why do jellyfish glow? How deep can sea turtles dive? Do fish sleep? At the octopus exhibit, she stopped, pressed her hands against the glass, watched the creature move through the water, arms flowing like silk, changing colors as it touched the rocks. They're so smart, she whispered. They can solve puzzles. They remember things. They can even use tools. Darius stood beside her. His daughter's face glowed in the blue light from the tank. She looked so much like Claire in that moment. Same wonder. Same quiet intensity. You know what's cool? Zoe said. What? They have 3 hearts, and their blood is blue. I didn't know that. She smiled. I read it in a book. They spent 4 hours there. Lunch at the cafe, more exhibits. The touch tank where Zoe hesitated before finally putting her hand in the water, laughing when a starfish moved under her fingers. On the bus home, she fell asleep against his shoulder, the book clutched in her lap, her breath slow and even. Darius looked out the window, watched the city pass. Tried not to think about Friday night, about Simone's face when he'd said the word daughter, about the way her voice had turned cold. He pushed it from his mind. It was Zoe's birthday. Nothing else mattered. Monday morning, the email came at 8:15. Subject: Important announcement, operational efficiency review. Darius opened it on his phone while standing in the break room, coffee cooling in his hand. The message was short, professional, cold. Meridian Tech was conducting a company-wide review of operational efficiency. All departments would be assessed, positions evaluated. The goal was to streamline operations and reduce redundancy. The email ended with a line about how the company valued all employees and appreciated their patience during this process. Darius read it twice. Then he looked up. Across the break room, 2 other facilities workers were reading the same email. One of them met his eyes. The man's face said everything. This wasn't about efficiency. This was about cuts. The review started on Tuesday. HR sent individual emails to everyone in facilities. Darius's came at 9:17. Subject line, department review, action required. He was asked to submit a detailed breakdown of his daily responsibilities. List every task. Estimate time spent on each. Identify which task could be automated or outsourced. He sat at his desk and filled out the form. Checked every box. Answered every question. Sent it back within an hour. Wednesday morning, his supervisor called him into a small conference room on the second floor. A woman from HR was there. Mid-40s, glasses, a folder open in front of her. "This is just routine," she said. "Part of the efficiency review." She asked him about his schedule, his workflow, whether he felt he had enough to do, whether he ever felt overwhelmed. Darius answered carefully, kept his voice level, gave them nothing to use. Thursday, he left work 14 minutes early. Zoe's school called. She'd forgotten her lunch money. The cafeteria said she could pay tomorrow, but Darius knew she'd skip eating rather than ask. He clocked out at 4:46 and took the bus to her school. He handed her $10 through the office window. She smiled, embarrassed but grateful. "Thanks, Dad. Be more careful tomorrow." "I will." He made it home by 6, cooked dinner, helped her with homework, put her to bed at 9. Friday morning, there was an email in his inbox, time-stamped 11:52 the night before. Subject: Workspace Standards Update, New Organizational Requirements for All Facility Staff. Effective immediately. Tools must be stored in designated containers. Workstations must be clear of personal items. Digital logs must be updated within 2 hours of task completion. Darius read it twice. The standards had been implemented while he slept. He was already in violation. Monday, another email. This one from his supervisor. The midnight message Darius had received on Thursday night required a response. He'd responded at 7:03 Friday morning. The email noted that the response window was 4 hours. His reply had come 7 hours and 11 minutes after the original message. The email was marked as a documented incident. Darius stared at his screen. His jaw tightened. His hands gripped the edge of the desk. He said nothing. At home that evening, Zoe watched him from the couch. He stood at the kitchen counter reheating leftovers. The microwave hummed. Rain tapped against the window. The apartment felt smaller than usual. "Dad?" He looked over. She sat with her knees pulled up, her journal closed on her lap. "Yeah, baby? Are you okay?" He forced a smile. "I'm fine. You seem weird. Just tired." She studied him. Those eyes that saw too much. "You're not lying, are you?" "No." "I promise." She didn't look convinced, but she nodded and went back to her journal. The microwave beeped. Darius pulled out the plate, sat at the table, ate without tasting. That night, after Zoe fell asleep, the memory came. He was 22 backstage at Carnegie Hall. The dressing room smelled like old wood and rosin. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He stared at them, willing them steady, but they trembled like leaves. The door opened. Claire walked in. She wore a black dress. Her violin case hung from one hand. She crossed the room and took his hands in hers. Her grip was firm. "You're going to be perfect," she said. "What if I'm not? Then you'll be imperfect, and I'll still love you." She smiled, kissed his knuckles. "Just play for me. Forget everyone else." His breathing slowed. The shaking stopped. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." The memory dissolved. Darius sat at the kitchen table in the present, the apartment dark except for the glow from the streetlight outside. He opened his laptop, pulled up his bank account, checking $842, savings $1,600. Rent was due in 12 days, $950, utilities. Groceries. Zoe's school supplies. If he lost this job, they'd have maybe 2 months before everything collapsed. He closed the laptop, pressed his palms against his eyes. Footsteps behind him, soft, bare feet on linoleum. Zoe stood in the doorway, purple pajamas, hair messy from sleep. "Why are you still up?" he asked. "I heard you moving around." She came closer, looked at him with those 2 knowing eyes. "Are we okay?" "Yeah, we're okay. Promise?" "Promise." She climbed into his lap even though she was getting too big for it, rested her head against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her, felt her breathing sync with his. "Dad? My teacher said there's a talent show next month, father-daughter night." His chest tightened. "Yeah? Can we go?" He thought about the bank account, the review, the emails piling up like stones on his back, but he looked down at his daughter, at the hope in her face. "Yeah, baby, we'll go." "You promise?" "I promise." "I promise." She smiled. hugged him tighter. 10 minutes later, he carried her back to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. When he turned to leave, he heard it. A small cough. Dot. Barely there. He paused in the doorway. Zoe had already rolled over, pulling the blanket to her chin. Probably nothing. Kids coughed all the time. Darius closed the door and walked back to the kitchen, pushing the sound from his mind. By Wednesday, Zoe couldn't stop coughing. She came home from school with a fever. Her forehead burned under Darius's palm. She shivered even though the apartment was warm. "I'm okay," she whispered, but her breathing sounded wrong. Shallow. Labored. He gave her medicine. Put her to bed. Checked on her every hour. At 2 in the morning, she woke up gasping. Darius called 911. The emergency room was bright and cold. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Monitors beeped from every direction. A doctor examined Zoe, listened to her lungs, ordered chest x-rays, pneumonia. They admitted her. Put an IV in her small arm. Started antibiotics. Darius sat in a chair beside her bed and didn't leave. The room smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. The walls were pale blue. A window looked out over the city, lights scattered across the darkness like fallen stars. Zoe slept fitfully. The IV pulse stood next to her bed like a silent guard. Her breathing came easier after the first dose of medication, but she still looked so small under the hospital blankets. Darius called work Thursday morning, used one of his 3 remaining sick days. Friday, he used another. Saturday, he requested unpaid leave. HR sent back a 1-line email, approved through Monday. Return Tuesday or provide medical documentation. He didn't respond. Sunday afternoon, Zoe woke up lucid for the first time in days. The fever had broken. Her eyes were clear. "Dad?" He leaned forward. "I'm here, baby. How long have I been here?" 4 days. She looked around the room. At the IV, at the monitors, her fingers found his hand, squeezed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You don't apologize for being sick. You're missing work." "I don't care about work." She studied his face, those eyes that saw too much. "You look tired." "I'm fine." She didn't believe him, but she was too weak to argue. That evening, while she ate applesauce and crackers, Darius told her stories. About her mother, about how they met. She played violin, he said. "The first time I heard her, I thought it was the most beautiful sound in the world." Zoe set down her spoon. "What were you doing?" "Listening." "No. I mean, what did you do before you fixed buildings?" The question landed quiet and careful. Darius looked at his hands. Long fingers. Scarred knuckles. Hands that had once moved across piano keys in front of thousands of people. "I did things that don't matter anymore." "But they mattered then, right?" He didn't answer. Zoe watched him, waiting. But he stayed silent. She picked up her spoon again. Didn't push. The memory came anyway. Vienna, 20U cell teen. Darius was 24. Claire was 26. They were in a rehearsal room at the conservatory. Small space. Late afternoon light spilled through tall windows, turning everything golden. Darius sat at the piano. Claire stood beside him, violin tucked under her chin. They were working on a Brahms sonata, the kind of piece that required absolute synchronization. Every breath mattered. Every pause. He played the opening phrase. She came in on the third measure. Wrong tempo. She stopped. Laughed. The sound filled the room like sunlight. "You're rushing," she said. "You're dragging. I'm following your tempo. If you'd slow down." He played it again. Slower this time. Exaggerated. She rolled her eyes. Leaned down and kissed him. Quick, soft. "Like that," she whispered against his lips. But faster. They played it again. Perfect this time. The memory shifted. Same room. 7 years later. Claire lay in a hospital bed. Tubes ran from her arms. A ventilator helped her breathe. ALS had stolen almost everything. Her hands lay useless at her sides. Darius sat next to her. A small keyboard balanced on his lap. He played Debussy, Claire de Lune, her favorite. Tears ran down her face. She couldn't wipe them away. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Her voice barely worked. The disease had taken that too. "Don't. I wanted to play with you. You are playing with me." Her fingers twitched. Tried to move. Couldn't. She wept. Darius kept playing. Notes blurred together. His own vision clouded. But he didn't stop. When he finished, she looked at him. "Promise me something," she said. Anything. Don't stop playing. Not because of me. He couldn't promise that. 3 weeks later, she was gone. The memory dissolved. Darius sat in the hospital chair, Zoe sleeping quietly beside him. Rain tapped against the window. The city lights blurred in the wet glass. He wiped his eyes, stood, stretched, checked, pulled her blanket higher. She was going to be okay. Monday morning, the doctor released her. Darius signed the discharge papers, helped Zoe into a wheelchair even though she insisted she could walk, took her home. He made her soup, put her to bed, sat with her until she fell asleep. Then he checked his email. Tuesday he returned to work. The building felt different, colder. The fluorescent light seemed harsher than he remembered. He clocked in, checked his schedule, started his rounds. At 10:30, his phone buzzed. Email from HR. Subject, meeting request, time set, 2 o'clock. Darius read it twice. He knew what this was. Conference room 2B was small and windowless. Darius arrived at 2 o'clock. The HR director sat at the table. A woman in her 50s, gray suit, reading glasses hanging from a chain. Next to her, Simone Garrett. Perfect posture, navy dress, gold earrings. She didn't look at him when he walked in. "Have a seat, Mr. Webb," the HR director said. Darius sat. The chair was hard plastic. The room smelled like stale coffee and air freshener. A single folder lay closed on the table. "Thank you for coming on short notice." He nodded. The HR director opened the folder, pulled out a single sheet of paper, slid it across the table. "As you know, Meridian Tech has been conducting an operational efficiency review. After careful consideration, we've determined that your position will be eliminated as part of our restructuring initiative." The words landed flat, clinical. Darius looked at the paper. Termination of employment, his name typed at the top. "We're outsourcing facilities management to a contracted service provider. This decision reflects our need to streamline operations and reduce overhead costs." Simone sat perfectly still, her hands folded on the table. Her face showed nothing. "Your last day of employment will be this Friday. You'll receive 2 weeks severance pay. Healthcare coverage continues through the end of the month." Darius looked up. "Is there any possibility of reconsideration?" The HR director glanced at Simone. Simone spoke for the first time. Her voice was controlled, even. "The decision is final." She still wouldn't look at him. "We appreciate your service to Meridian. We appreciate your service to Meridian." She pushed the folder across the table. "This packet contains your severance agreement, Ciobra information, and instructions for returning company property. Please review and sign by Wednesday." The meeting lasted 7 minutes. Darius stood, took the folder, walked out. The hallway felt longer than it had on the way in. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. His footsteps echoed on the tile floor. He returned to his desk in the basement, started packing. Tools went into the toolbox. Files into a cardboard box someone had left by the recycling. His coffee mug. A photo of Zoe he kept in his drawer. 2 coworkers walked past. Stopped. "What's going on?" "Restructuring," Darius said. "They're letting you go?" "Yeah, that's insane. You run this whole building." Darius didn't respond, just kept packing. "I'm sorry, man. Thanks." They walked away, voices low, angry on his behalf. By 5:30, his desk was empty. He carried the box to his car, drove home through rush hour traffic. Rain started falling, wipers beat against the windshield. The radio played something he didn't hear. Zoe was at the kitchen table when he walked in, homework spread out in front of her. She looked up. "You're home early." He set the box down by the door. "Yeah." She studied his face. "What's wrong?" He sat across from her, took a breath. "I lost my job, baby." Her pencil stopped moving. "What? The company is making changes. My position was eliminated. But you're good at your job." "I know." "Did you do something wrong?" "No, I didn't." She stared at him, processing. Her small hands gripped the edge of the table. "That's not fair." "No, it isn't. Can you get it back?" "No, baby, I can't." She went quiet, her jaw set. That look she got when something hurt her, but she refused to cry. "What are we going to do?" "I'll find something else." "When?" She didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes. The next 2 weeks blurred together. Darius updated his resume, Left out the 12 years between Juilliard and facilities work, sent applications, waited. Interviews came. 3 of them, all for similar positions at other companies. Each one asked the same question. I see a gap in your employment history. Can you explain? He gave vague answers. Personal reasons, family matters, time away from the workforce. They thanked him, said they'd be in touch. No offers came. By the second week, their savings account showed $437. Checking had 212 watt rent was due in 6 days. Darius sat at the kitchen table with a calculator and a stack of bills. The math didn't work. No matter how he arranged it, they were short. The mail came. He sorted through it. Electric bill, credit card statement, and a bright yellow flyer from Zoe's school. Father-daughter talent show this Friday, 6:30 p.m. All families welcome. He set it aside. Kept sorting bills. That evening, Zoe appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her school clothes, her backpack hung from one shoulder. Dad? He looked up from his laptop. Another job posting. Another application half filled. The talent show is Friday. He'd forgotten. Can we still go? He looked at her, at the hope in her face, at the way she held herself so carefully, like she was afraid of the answer. The talent show cost nothing. Just time. Just showing up. And he promised. Yeah, baby. We'll go. Her whole face changed. The tension left her shoulders. Really? I promised, didn't I? She smiled. Actually smiled. The first real smile he'd seen from her in days. Thank you. She came over, hugged him. He wrapped his arms around her and held on. When she pulled away, she was humming, soft, under her breath, a melody he recognized but couldn't place. She disappeared into her room. The door closed. He heard the scratch of pencil on paper, her journal, writing something she'd never let him read. Darius went back to his laptop, finished the application, hit submit. Outside, rain tapped against the window. The apartment was warm, quiet, safe, for now. Friday would come. They'd go to the talent show. Zoe would do whatever she'd been secretly preparing. He'd sit in the audience and be proud of her. And after that, he didn't know. The auditorium. Families filled every row. Parents held phones. Siblings squirmed in seats. Teachers stood along the back wall. The air smelled like gymnasium floor wax and too many people in one space. Voices echoed off the high ceiling. Darius sat third row center. He wore his only dress shirt. Light blue, slightly faded from too many washes. He'd ironed it that morning while Zoe ate breakfast in silence, too nervous to talk. She was backstage now, somewhere behind the heavy curtain. He couldn't see her, but he knew she was terrified. The lights dimmed. The crowd settled. A woman walked to the microphone, Ms. Caldwell. Zoe's music teacher, 30s, kind eyes, a smile that put kids at ease. Welcome to our father-daughter talent show, she said. We have some wonderful performances tonight. Let's show our support for these brave young people. Applause. The first act walked on. A boy with a ukulele, maybe 10 years old. He played a song Darius didn't recognize, simple chords. The kid sang off-key but committed. His father watched from the front row, grinning. More applause. Twin girls did a dance routine, matching outfits. Choreography they'd clearly practiced for weeks. Their dad filmed the whole thing. A father-son magic act. Cards and scarves. The tricks didn't quite work, but the audience clapped anyway. Darius's hands gripped the armrests. 3 more performances. A piano duet. A comedy sketch. A girl who juggled while her father called out encouragement. Then Ms. Caldwell returned to the microphone. Our next performer is Zoe Webb. She'll be sharing an original poem. The curtain parted. Zoe walked onto the stage. She looked so small up there. Purple dress, hair pulled back, her hands clasped in front of her. She walked to the microphone like she was walking to something she couldn't escape. The audience waited. Darius's chest tightened. Zoe stood at the microphone. Silence stretched. Her hands trembled. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again. Her lips moved. No sound. Panic flooded her face. Her breathing quickened. Her fingers twisted together. She looked into the audience. Found Darius. Their eyes met. And in that instant he saw Claire. The same fear. The same expression she used to get before performances when the anxiety became too much, the way her hands would shake, the way her breath would catch. Zoe's eyes pleaded with him. Darius stood. He didn't think. Instinct took over. He walked down the aisle. Every head turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd. He kept moving, climbed the steps to the stage. In the corner of the auditorium sat an upright piano, old dot-scarred wood, keys yellowed with age. He crossed to it. Ms. Caldwell appeared beside him, confused. "Mr. Webb? Can I accompany her?" She blinked. "I didn't know you played. Is it okay?" She looked at Zoe, at the terror on the girl's face. "Yes, of course." Darius sat at the bench. 7 years. He hadn't touched a piano in 7 years. His hands hovered over the keys. Long fingers, scarred knuckles. Hands that had once moved across stages in Vienna, New York, London. The audience had gone completely quiet. Zoe stood frozen at the microphone. Darius pressed down on middle C. The note rang out. Slightly out of tune, but clear. Then he played. Debussy. Clair de Lune. The opening bars filled the auditorium. Soft, delicate, notes that floated like moonlight on water. The room stilled. Zoe's head snapped toward him. Recognition flooded her face. She knew this melody. She'd found the recording in his closet months ago, hidden in a box she wasn't supposed to. A recording of Claire playing violin while Darius accompanied her on piano. Mom's song. Zoe's breathing steadied, her hands unclenched. Darius kept playing. Muscle memory took over. His fingers knew this piece the way they knew breathing. He'd played it for Claire in hospital rooms, in concert halls, in tiny apartments in cities he'd forgotten. Zoe stepped closer to the microphone. She began to speak. Her voice was quiet at first, shaky, but it grew stronger with each line. "My mother had hands that made music," she said. "I never held them, but I know they were gentle. Dad says I have her eyes. I see them when I look in the mirror. Sometimes I wonder if she can see me too." The piano wove around her words. She played violin, he played piano. They made beautiful things together. And then she got sick, and the music stopped. But I'm still here. And that means the music didn't really stop. It just changed. Darius's vision blurred. He kept playing. "Dad doesn't talk about her much. I think it hurts too much. I think it hurts too much. But I write about her in my journal. I tell her things. About school. About how Dad takes care of me even when he's tired. I tell her I'm okay. I hope she knows." The melody swelled. Darius added depth to the accompaniment. Layers Claire would have recognized. "I think love is stronger than ending," Zoe said, her voice clear now. "Steady, because she's gone, but I still feel her. In the way Dad looks at me sometimes. In the songs he hums when he thinks I'm not listening. In this music he's playing right now that he stopped playing because it reminded him of her." Tears ran down Darius's face. His hands didn't falter. "So this is for you, Mom, and for Dad, because you loved each other, and because I'm here, and because the music never really stopped." She finished. Darius played the final phrase. Let the last note fade into silence. The auditorium was completely still. Then Zoe walked across the stage, straight to the piano. She wrapped her arms around her father's shoulders. He stood, held her, let her bury her face against his chest. The applause started, tentative at first, then growing, rising, filling the space. But Darius didn't hear it. He just held his daughter and felt something inside him that had been frozen for 7 years begin to crack. In the third row, a woman stood, mid-40s. Dark hair, professional clothes. She wasn't clapping. She was staring. Caldwell stood off to the side of the stage. Her mouth hung slightly open. She taught music. She'd studied at Berkeley. She knew technique when she heard it. And what she'd just heard wasn't someone who used to take lessons. What she'd just heard was world class. The applause washed over them. Darius stood at the piano, arms wrapped around his daughter. Zoe pressed her face against his chest. Her shoulders shook. "That was Mom's song," she whispered. He nodded. Couldn't speak. The audience rose. Clapping filled the auditorium. Parents smiled. Kids cheered. Someone whistled. Darius held Zoe tighter. After a moment, she pulled back, wiped her eyes, looked up at him. "You never told me you could play like that. I haven't played in a long time." "Why not?" "It reminded me too much of her." Zoe's hand found his. Squeezed. Does it still? Yeah, he said quietly. But that's okay. The curtain closed. The next act prepared. Darius led Zoe off stage. The reception was in the cafeteria. Folding tables covered with cookies and juice boxes. Parents gathered in clusters. Kids ran between them, sugar-fueled and loud. Darius poured Zoe a cup of punch. She stood close to him, still processing what had just happened. Ms. Caldwell appeared beside them. Mr. Webb. He turned. Ms. Caldwell. That was extraordinary. She studied his face. Where did you study? A long time ago. Different life. That kind of technique doesn't come from lessons. That's conservatory training, maybe higher. He didn't answer. I went to Berkeley, she said. Studied piano performance for 6 years. I know world-class playing when I hear it. Darius shifted. Uncomfortable. I appreciate that. She pulled out her phone, opened Google, typed something. Her eyes scanned it. Her face went pale. Oh my God. She turned the phone toward another parent standing nearby, a woman in yoga pants holding a toddler. The woman looked. Her eyes widened. Is this you? Miss Caldwell asked. Darius glanced at the screen, saw his own face. Younger. A professional headshot from 15 years ago, the Wikipedia page for Darius Webb, pianist. It was, he said quietly. You played at Carnegie Hall, the Kennedy Center. You were on the cover of Classical Music magazine. The other parent was staring now. You're that Darius Webb? I was. Why are you working as a facilities coordinator? He looked at Zoe. She was watching him with those eyes that saw everything. Because I needed a job that let me be there for my daughter. Miss Caldwell's phone buzzed. Someone had texted her, then another message, then another. Across the cafeteria, a father held up his phone. He'd recorded the performance. Posted it to Facebook with a caption, Facilities worker plays piano at daughter's school. You unbelievable. The man showed his wife. She showed someone else. Darius felt the attention shifting, conversation stopping, eyes turning toward him. We should go, he said to Zoe. She nodded. They left through the side exit, got to the car, drove home in silence. Zoe fell asleep before they reached their street. Darius carried her inside, put her to bed, kissed her forehead. His phone sat on the kitchen table. He'd silenced it during the talent show. When he picked it up, the screen showed 17 missed calls, 32 text messages. He ignored them, went to bed. By midnight, the video had 200,000 views. A classical music blogger in Boston saw it at 1 in the morning. She recognized the name immediately, spent an hour researching. Then she wrote. The headline, Where is Darius Webb, the prodigy who disappeared? The article detailed his career. Juilliard at 16. New York Philharmonic debut at 19. Tours across Europe. Critical acclaim. Then his wife's diagnosis. Her death. His complete vanishing from the classical music world. And now, 7 years later, playing Debussy at an elementary school talent show for his daughter. The article went viral. By 6 Saturday morning, the video had 4 million views. News outlets picked it up. Local Seattle news. Then NPR. Then CNN. At Meridian Tech headquarters, a board member saw the story while drinking coffee. He read it twice, pulled up the video, watched. He recognized Darius immediately, the facilities coordinator who'd been let go 2 weeks ago. He called another board member, then another. By 9, 5 of them were on a conference call. One of them had attended a gala at Carnegie Hall in 2009. He'd heard Darius play Rachmaninoff, never forgot it. We fired Darius Webb, he said. Apparently. Why? No one had a good answer. They called Simone. Her phone rang at 9:47. She was at home. Still in pajamas. Coffee getting cold on the counter, she answered. This is Simone. Have you seen the news? What news? About Darius Webb. Her stomach dropped. What about him? You should look. She hung up, opened her laptop, searched his name. The video was the first result. 4.3 million views now. She watched it, saw him walk on stage, sit at the piano, play. Her phone rang again. Different board member. We need to talk about the decision to terminate Mr. Webb. It was part of the restructuring. Several of us are uncomfortable with the optics. The decision was made based on operational needs. Simone, he's Darius Webb. People know that name. Investors are calling. They're asking questions. I'll draft a statement. That's not going to be enough. The calls kept coming. All morning. Investors, board members, the company's PR director. By noon, a journalist from the Seattle Times had connected the dots. Darius Webb, former world-renowned pianist, had worked at Meridian Tech for 7 years. He'd been fired 2 weeks ago. The timeline matched company restructuring announcements. But then an employee reached out, anonymously, sent screenshots, email dates, the efficiency review announcement, the timing, and one detail that made everything click. Darius had been fired exactly 10 days after declining a dinner invitation from CEO Dr. Simone Garrett. The journalist confirmed it with a second source, then a third. She called Meridian for comment. Simone's phone wouldn't stop ringing. At 2 in the afternoon, she sat in her pristine living room, floor-to-ceiling windows, view of Elliott Bay. Everything she'd worked for. Her phone buzzed again. The board chair, she answered. Yes, we're calling an emergency meeting. Monday morning, 9 sharp. I understand. Simone, this is bad. This is very bad. She knew. The story went live at 4:30 Saturday afternoon. Former concert pianist fired after declining CEO's dinner invitation. The article was careful, factual, but the implications were clear. By Sunday morning, it was everywhere. Simone sat alone in her apartment, blinds drawn, phone face down on the table. She'd built this company from nothing. 12 employees to 400, survived acquisition attempts, made the Forbes list, and now it was all crumbling because she'd asked a man to dinner and he'd said no, because she'd been lonely and hurt and petty. Her phone buzzed. Again and again and again, she didn't answer. The board called an emergency meeting Monday morning. Simone sat across from 7 people who'd once believed in her. The conference room on the 40th floor had views of Elliott Bay, glass walls, polished table, everything gleaming and cold. We'd like to offer Mr. Webb full reinstatement, the board chair said. Back pay, formal apology, settlement for damages. And if he declines, Simone asked. And if he declines, Simone asked. Then we've done what we can. What about me? The room went quiet. We think it's best if you step down, the chair said. You can frame it however you'd like. Personal reasons. We'll provide a generous exit package. Simone looked at each face. People she'd worked beside for years. Built this company with, not one of them met her eyes. I'll resign, she said. Effective immediately. Simone. It's fine. She stood. I'll have my attorney contact you about the terms. She walked out. Didn't look back. The board reached out to Darius that afternoon. He was at the apartment making lunch for Zoe when his phone rang. They explained the offer. Reinstatement, apology, settlement. Thank you, he said, but I'm not coming back. We understand this is difficult. We'd like to make it right. I appreciate that, but I don't want to return. He hung up. 2 days later, a different call came. The director of the Seattle Symphony, she'd seen the video, remembered his name from years ago. She had a proposition. We're expanding our education program, she said. Master classes for young musicians. No performance required. Just teaching. Sharing your knowledge. Just teaching. Sharing your knowledge. Darius listened. Twice a week. Wednesday and Saturday afternoons. We'd pay you fairly. You'd have complete creative control over curriculum. About passing something forward instead of burying it. When would it start? He asked. Whenever you're ready. 3 months later, Darius stood in a rehearsal room at Benaroya Hall. Sunlight poured through tall windows. A Steinway grand piano sat in the corner. 6 teenagers sat in the semicircle, instruments at their sides, notebooks open. Darius wore dark jeans and a sweater. His hair was freshly cut. He looked rested. Let's talk about Chopin, he said. The students leaned forward. For the next 90 minutes, he guided them through Nocturne in E-flat major. Not just the notes. The feeling beneath the notes. The spaces between phrases. The way silence could carry as much weight as sound. He played passages to demonstrate. His hands moved across the keys with the same unconscious grace they'd always had. The students watched, mesmerized. At the back of the room, Zoe sat cross-legged on the floor. She came, sometimes. Did her homework. Listened to her father teach. She'd never seen him like this before. Confident, present, alive. After class, a girl approached. 16, violin case slung over her shoulder. That was amazing, she said. You're doing good work, Darius told her. Keep at it. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you stop playing? Professionally, I mean. Darius was quiet for a moment. Life changed. My priorities changed. Do you miss it? Sometimes, but I wouldn't trade what I have now. The girl nodded. Didn't fully understand. Maybe one day she would. They'd moved to a new apartment in the Central District. Still modest. Still new to a new apartment in the Central District. Still in the neighborhood where Darius had always lived. But bigger. 2 bedrooms. Zoe had her own space. A real desk for her books. The rent was manageable now. The symphony paid well. They weren't wealthy, but they were stable, safe. One Saturday afternoon, Darius and Zoe walked to Pike Place Market. They browsed the stalls, bought flowers, stopped for coffee at a small cafe overlooking the water. Across the street, Simone Garrett sat alone at an outdoor table. She'd aged in 3 months. Her hair was shorter. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. No jewelry, no armor. She saw them through the window. No armor. She saw them through the window. Darius saw her. Their eyes met. Simone didn't move. Just sat there, coffee cooling in her hands. Darius said something to Zoe, stepped outside, walked across the street. He stood at the edge of her table. She looked up. "Hi," he said. "Hi," a long silence. "I heard you resigned," he said. "I did. I'm sorry it ended that way." Her jaw tightened. "I'm the one who should be sorry, I know." She looked away, out toward the water. "I was lonely and hurt, and I made it your problem, yeah. That doesn't make it okay." "No, it doesn't." Another silence. The market crowd moved around them. Voices, laughter, life continuing. "Are you doing all right?" she asked. "I am." "Good." She meant it. "I'm glad." Darius nodded once. "Not. I hope you find what you're looking for," he said quietly. Simone's throat tightened. She nodded. Couldn't speak. Darius walked back across the street. Zoe was waiting. She took his hand. They left together. Sunday morning, they drove to Lakeview Cemetery. The sun was gentle, warm for November. Leaves covered the ground in shades of gold and rust. The cemetery sat on a hill overlooking Lake Washington, quiet, peaceful. Claire's grave was under a maple tree. Zoe carried the flowers they'd bought yesterday. Daisies, Claire's favorite. They walked up the path, found the headstone. Simple. Claire Beaumont Webb, beloved wife and mother, 1984 to 2017. Zoe placed the flowers at the base, knelt down, pulled her journal from her backpack. "Can I read to her?" she asked. "Of course." Zoe opened to a marked page, cleared her throat, read in a soft, steady voice. It was a poem about music, about how sound could carry love across impossible distances, about how a daughter could know her mother through notes her father played. When she finished, she closed the journal, sat quietly. Darius knelt beside her. "I have something to tell your mom," he said. Zoe nodded. He looked at the headstone. That Claire's name etched in stone. "Zoe played piano last week," he said, "just scales. But she's interested. She has your ear, your sense of timing." His voice caught. "I'm teaching her, if that's okay." The wind moved through the maple leaves, gentle, like a whisper. "I kept my promise," he continued. "I didn't play for 7 years, not until it was for you, for your memory." He wiped his eyes. "And when I did, it brought me back to life. You brought me back to life." Zoe leaned against him. He wrapped his arm around her. "I miss you," he said. "Every day. But I'm okay. We're okay." They sat there for a while. Father and daughter, the living and the dead, connected by love that didn't end. Finally, they stood, walked back to the car, drove home through the Sunday quiet. That evening, Darius made dinner. Zoe did homework at the kitchen table. The apartment smelled like garlic and tomatoes. Music played softly from a speaker. Classical, Debussy. After they ate, Zoe asked if she could practice. "Practice what?" Darius asked. "Piano." He smiled. "Yeah, baby, you can practice." They sat at the keyboard he'd bought last month. Nothing fancy. A digital piano that fit in the corner of the living room. He showed her hand position, posture, how to let her wrists stay loose. She played middle C, then D, then E. The notes were simple. Beginner, imperfect. They were the most beautiful sounds he'd ever heard. Outside, the city lights flickered on. The neighborhood settled into evening. The world kept turning. And in a small apartment in the Central District, a father taught his daughter to make music. Because grace costs nothing. But withholding it costs nothing. But withholding it costs everything.